Today, we are going to take a really fun approach to this. We were thinking, what is something different? What is something we haven't done before? What is a fun approach that we can take to maybe a difficult topic? We were thinking through adventure, and we were thinking through what is a really cool illustration. So we have Mark today he owns a business called Mark's Ark. Mark, if you want to join us on stage, would you give him a hand, please?
Morning.
So this is Mark from Mark's Ark,
Morning.
and he has some friends with him today. And so we're going to kind of embrace animals a little bit, some that are fun and friendly, and some that maybe are not in our comfort zone, some that may not be as comfortable, and kind of talk about how the more that you learn about something that's new and the more that you engage with it in a safe environment, the more comfortable it is to engage in uncomfort. So to join him today to help with his demonstration and explanation of his friends, our victims. Yes.
Yeah, our victims.
We have the rest of our chapel team. So would you join me in welcoming Marty, Max, Mariah, and Elle?
They don't look too eager.
Oh, no, they don't. So they'll be helping with demonstration a bit today, and I will turn the mic over to you.
All right, good morning, everybody. It's been a while since I've had such a large group. That's one of those things that you get out of your comfort zone is talking in large groups. So I usually don't have any problem with it, but this is a large group. Today we're going to see some really neat, amazing animals, and people do get out of their comfort zone with animals. Raise your hands if you're not particularly crazy about snakes. That's usually about the number one. Oh, come on, really? That's it? Usually it's almost everybody. Or spiders. Spiders will, if they're outside, I'm fine. The minute they're in the house, I will scream like a girl. I don't like spiders in my house, but when they're outside the house, I'm fine with it. There's nothing better I like than a nice big spider web, an orb weaver that's right in the corner of my barn or something. It's really amazing, it's architecture done by an animal. But today we're going to see some really neat animals. I've got my assistants here to show these animals. It's going to be a very interactive presentation. They're going to be handling animals, helping me, to demonstrate these animals today. Brought quite a few things. Today I've got some reptiles, I've got some bird, I've got some amphibians, some soft and furry mammals, and I don't think I brought any bugs today. No, I don't usually bring bugs unless I'm asked to, because that will really put somebody out of their comfort zone. So today we're just going to kind of get some, just go through them kind of randomly, but we are going to have my assistance with the animals. So we might as well get started here. Now, I want to tell you guys, these are all safe and friendly animals, because we didn't kind of go through this before. They will not bite you, hurt you, scratch you in any way, at least the ones that I show you. You guys are going to help me with. So these are really friendly animals. I think we're going to start with something. Let's just get out of the comfort zone here, and I don't mean to put my back towards you guys. We're going to start with, let's see here. Well, I'll tell you what. We'll start with this one. This one comes from Australia. It is quite an amazing animal. This is a blue-tongued skink. Now, the reason why they're called a blue-tongued skink is, if he'll show me, this is Sir Lick-a-Lot. Sir Lick-a-Lot is a blue-tongued skink. Blue-tongued skinks have a blue tongue. All right, you're going to be all right. First of all, let me tell I guess I'd call you my panel. This is my panel. We're going to, I'm not going to scare you with anything, okay? So if we need to, even in steps, or if you don't you don't have to touch or mess with anything at all. I don't scare, I don't like to do that. So if you don't like something, that's okay. But this is one of my favorites to show. He is very, very gentle, very easygoing. They're a lizard that lives in the southern part of Australia, in some forest and even at the edge of desert area or semi-desert area. They're on the ground. They mimic a snake. See, they'll actually tuck their legs back and mimic a snake. They even have markings like a snake. And they're very flexible, like a snake. They'll even bend backwards like a snake. So they mimic a snake. Now, what he hasn't shown us yet, which I'm really surprised about, is his beautiful blue tongue. These animals are pretty amazing. So what you're gonna do, yep, exactly. The nails are a little sharp, all right? They have really sharp little short nails, like cleats. So if any of you guys ever play soccer or football, you wear cleats on the bottom of your shoes for traction. This little guy can't pick his body up off the ground, so he has really sharp little nails that act like cleats. He'll actually, when he's on the ground in really tall grass, he can use all fours on this smooth, but if you notice, if I hold his legs in, it doesn't bother him at all, and he starts doing a wiggling motion, and he'll actually move similar to a snake. He has very powerful jaws. Put your hands under each set of limbs. So the front and back, there you go, just like that. He's kind of heavy, he's kind of a stout little critter. But they're a predator. Well, they're really an omnivore. They eat, there's his tongue. What is amazing about this animal is when he's scared, he will mimic a snake. He will wrap himself up, he'll coil himself up, if he probably won't let me, oh, there he goes, and he'll face you. And his mouth will open, and this tongue he can manipulate. He can make it really wide, and he can stick it out about that far. He'll wave it up and down as he's coiled up, and he'll hiss. He makes a very loud sound. And it is very, very scary. It is mostly triggered by something above him. So he's on the ground, so everything else is above him, is taller. So anything like a dingo, a dog, a wild dog, or some kind of a predatory bird, a hawk or an eagle. But there are other types of predatory lizards that are really, no, you don't want to try? You just want to see what he feels like? Yeah, he's not going to hurt you, yeah. So can he give you a little kiss? No, you're all right, okay, yeah. Give you a little kiss? No, all right, how about on the hand? Yeah, there he goes. So it is really a bright blue tongue. And like I said, it is quite a defensive thing. These are found in Australia and New Zealand and in Tasmania and in a lot of islands off the South Pacific. New Zealand in particular is pretty neat. They have taken this animal as one of their kind of, I guess like you'd say Native Americans here in the United States, their spirit animal. This is found in a lot of their tapestries, their wall art, even on their tattoos. Native New Zealand, the Maori people, they have a lot of tattoos. You might know The Rock. The Rock is South Pacific, and he claims, part Maori. Maori were very aggressive, warlike people. And they adorn themselves with tattoos even on their tongues. You can imagine 200-300 years ago when a British ship was sailing in and they found this land, they come in and they would be met with 200 or 300 Maori men, very large men, tattooed completely all over their body, including around their eyes and their tongue, pierced all over, and they would be met by these people on their island, and they would come up and they would go, "Ah!" with their tongues, and they were either tattooed blue or black. Well, because this animal is so entrenched into their culture, this is where they mimic that. The people mimic this animal through that behavior because that's what they do. They stick their tongues out and they hiss. And it's quite effective, let me tell you. I've had mine do it a couple of times when I was going to pick them up from like this, and I ended up having to pick them up from the side so that they wouldn't act that way. So pretty neat animal. So what are you guys doing? You okay? You all right? Okay. All right. Now, believe it or not, one of my best friends is afraid of and out of their comfort zone with butterflies, believe it or not. It is not actually, it's the insect part of it, but it's actually the movement, the really fast movement. And one thing that I find with especially really not kids even, because kids grow up to be adults, is another animal that that is out of their comfort zone, and that's birds. Now, this may not be out of your comfort zone, but this is called an Asian red and gold pheasant. And where they're from, they're found in China all the way down through the mountains and pretty much all through China and other Asian countries, Southeast Asian countries. The funny thing about this is these have adapted. They all pretty much are the same size. This is a male. This is Roy G. Biv. It's like the rainbow because he's got rainbow colors. And it's not that what he's seeing is some little bits of movement will scare him, but that's what scares people with the birds. The birds, I get people that are terrified of their wing flaps, that sudden movement, yeah, sudden movement, is it's hardwired in our brains for that. So we see it in our peripheral vision, but we can also see it if something is flying. Birds really can terrify people. And so we're going to try and keep him nice and calm. I raised him from a baby. His eyesight is so good and he can control his pupils dilating so that he can adjust the light into his eye and focus in better. He has amazing colors and this long tail. The long tail is to attract mate. So he can communicate with that tail. Typically, he's just walking around and the tail is just flipping. That gives you an indication he's really just calm and everything. If he sees another male, it's really strong. And he starts making these really harsh chip sounds, just chip, chip, and the tail. And it's basically telling that male through visuals it is not a good thing to do. And then when he sees a female, the tail comes up, he can spread it. These are related to peacocks distantly, but he'll spread his tails, and the shafts of the feathers they're hard, and they make a sound. He actually has some beautiful feathers here called his collar feathers, and he does a fan dance with them. He covers his eyes, and he will bring his head down and show his face. And it displays his face, almost kind of like a lion around the head and things. So he's got this beautiful colors and the metallic greens and the blues all over his body. Now in the spring, he'll shed, after breeding season, he'll shed these feathers. They'll come out in about June or so, and then by winter again, he has them again. So his winter is a little bit opposite of what ours is. So now you're welcome to hold him. He's really gentle. So now hold him tighter than looser. So you hold him very firm. Yeah. Just go right in. So just go right in. Yep, and hold him tight. So birds like to be held firm. They can hear your heartbeat. They can hear your breathing, and that actually calms them. It simulates what a mother bird would be like on their nest. And even as they get bigger, it does calm them. You want to give it a try? Yeah, just put them tight, nice and firm. Yeah. What's that? It's not going to be a problem. Their heartbeat is almost double ours at rest. And their body temperature is about 103 to 104. Birds vary. Their body temperature is much hotter than ours. Their metabolism is much hotter. Higher, I should say. You ready? Want to hold him? See what that crest, when he can display with that beautiful crest, the light's hitting it beautiful right now, that gold, shiny gold. He has pearlescence and iridescence in his feathers, and it's really something. Now, throughout Southeast Asia, there are about 12 different breeds of pheasants, and they all are about the same size, all the same shape, but completely different colors. And that's how they identify themselves, and they look exactly the same body shape, different colors. You want to just pet them?
You got this.
Come on.
You gotta hold
He's all right.
We
Want to give it a
all
try?
did it. You gotta hold it.
How can you not? Just nice and firmly.
Oh, God.
Yeah, he's warm. He's just warm. See?
All right, take it.
All right.
Take it.
Not a problem. Say, no big deal. Not a big deal, huh? Yeah, there you go. And I've got this nice little spot cut out so he doesn't kink his feathers. There we go. Now, it's been more than a couple years ago, about 10 years ago, I get a call from the Elkhart Parks Department up in Elkhart, Indiana. And some fans from Elkhart, how you doing? This animal came from there. Now, it doesn't happen very often with me, but every once in a while I'll get a call from a parks department, a county, or an animal care place, and they want to try and place an animal with me. And I'm not a rehabilitator, nor do I do that. But in this case, it was kind of, I had to, because they didn't have any place for it. Two men were partners in business, and they were selling and illegally trading very endangered animals, especially birds. These guys would smuggle things in like hair curlers and then sew them in the linings of their coats. They were selling very endangered types of turtles and reptiles, and they were busted. They got in trouble, and they were found out, and it was a very big sting, even federally. And the one man is still doing time in jail, I believe, or prison. The other man did 6 years. That was the guy that wasn't the head of the business, but the other guy, he's still in jail or prison, I should say. But they had an animal that they couldn't place because it's really not an exotic. It's found commonly. It's a native to North America. There's a couple different, there's a species and then there's some subspecies. And this is the subspecies. I'm going to, move some space. I need some space here for it because it's quite a dramatic animal. It is an aquatic animal. It's a reptile. I'm not going to get my ear down there. His name is Vader. He makes a really loud hissing sound. So I'm going to attempt to get him out. Some of you guys already got to see him. Hopefully he won't bring he's in some newspaper because he's an aquatic animal typically. Go. Could one of you take this cooler and put it on the ground while I take him out and show everybody what it is? So thank you, hon. So what we have here, this is actually a Florida snapping turtle. Let me adjust there we go. Now, get that little bit out. Now, Florida snapping turtles are very similar to our North American species. You'd have to put them next to each other to actually identify them. They do have some colorization. I don't know, in the lights you might be able to see some orange, but I don't know, it might be obscured by the lighting. He is definitely in tune with me. I've had him for almost 10 years now. Really, you can't take a wild animal and put them back and once they're taken out of the wild and reintroduce them. The reason for that is because, especially in this case, he was introduced some very rare, unusual, exotic or rare reptiles. He could have possibly some kind of a bacteria or virus, and if he were released back into the wild, it could, since an animal like this would not have any kind of, he is really wound up. Hi. Immunity to it, since they come from different places in the world. So if he were to be re-released, he might introduce a new virus or bacteria that they're not adapted to, that they don't have immunity to. That's part of the problem with our box turtles around here. People have released exotic animals and things, but it's also habitat. Now, this guy right here, I know it looks like he's like biting about this far. He's actually got about a 9, maybe 11-inch reach. So these guys are commonly seen on roads when you're in the springtime. Rivers will rise, and they're looking for either mates or it's a large female looking to lay eggs, and they're mobilized, and they're out here, they're walking all over the place. And they are so tough and good at climbing and so forth that I've seen them scale over 8-foot chain link fences and then just rely on their shell. They just kind of tighten up and boom, they fall, and their shell takes the concussion of the fall. They are really good at that. Even a small car could run over their shell and it doesn't hurt them. And so they're really survivors. Now, the reason they get their name snapping turtle is because of that feature. Now, I will tell you right now that this does not occur in the water. If you were to come across one of these, unless you physically grab it and manhandle it, it will not bite you in the water. They're very shy in the water. They'd rather just hold tight into a bunch of roots or something and stay like that and be left alone. The minute they come out of the water, they're defenseless. They have a lot of vulnerable spots around their body. It may look like he's fat, but he's not. That's all muscle. Reptiles' muscles work differently. When they are at rest, their muscles are at rest. When we're at rest, because we're warm-blooded, our muscles are always in a very little bit state of flex, not reptiles. I love it. Now, all turtles in the world don't have teeth, but they do have beaks. He has a razor-sharp beak. If I were to take paper, it would look like a paper punch and make a big V punch in the paper. They can bite. These things crunch bone and so forth. They are good predators, but they eat mostly in the wild. They eat dead food. So they're mostly carrion eaters. They take care of a lot of Wild birds, ducks and geese and things like that do die, but they also eat a lot of fish and worms. They supposedly eat plants. I've never seen a single one ever eat a plant. But they're also one of the earliest to come out of hibernation. Here in March coming up, you may even see them under the ice walking around. And they don't even need to breathe atmospheric air. They do something really weird called cloacal breathing. So where their vent is, that's called the cloaca, where they go to the bathroom. They have a lot lined with a lot of blood vessels. And it works pretty much like gills. They actually open up and distend the cloaca, and they can, with muscle movement, they can kind of pump water and take oxygen out of the water that way. They can also open their mouth, and it's called pharyngeal breathing, and can do the same thing. They can pump water through their throat where there's blood vessels, and they can breathe. It's almost like how gills work. So that's how turtles survive under the water. Now, this is something you probably have never seen before. You probably will never do in your life. But the proper way to move an animal like this, I saved turtles. Last year, I saved 12 turtles from getting run over. Well, you see them, and I'll tell you what, people intentionally will run over them. I had a guy just run over him when I was trying to save it. He did it on purpose and then honked and waved at me. It's awful. So with this type of animal, they have this handy-dandy little handle. But it's really not a handle, it's their tail. It's easy to move them around, but this is not how you ever pick them up. You always pick them up from the back legs, just like so. And I'm not gonna get close, And by this way, they can only bite over their shells and to the sides. They can't bite under. So even though I've got them close, I might get scratched up, but they just slide, the nails slide over me. I can keep them close, and then I have complete control over them without ever having the problem of ever getting bitten. So if you ever see one of these, just leave them alone. I mean, they can bite right over their shell. I'm gonna try and get them to do it. Yep, like that. Whoop! Didn't want them to do that. Come here. But they are really quite the animal. So you want to leave them alone. Stop. There we go. Ready? Anybody want to pet them? No. Nope. Of course not. You really don't. They can take fingers, really. So not something you want to mess with. Here, we're just gonna go down the row here. I need 2 of you to help me out. Some more reptiles. Would 2 of you like to help me with snakes? They are really great. Yeah. Want to help me? Okay. All right, refresh me. Your name again? Max. Max? One of the ladies? Come on. All right. All right. Now, usually, there's nothing that scares somebody more than either, I would say, spiders or snakes. And snakes are just the coolest animals. So I've got 2 different snakes here. They're actually from Africa, and they're really completely different. So you want the smaller one? Okay, here you go. You get the big one. And you get the big one. You get left holding the bag, right? But I'm going to go with ladies first. Oh. So, what's that? There's a snake in here? There is a snake in there, yes. Now, the reason why we put them in bags is because snakes, they can't slither backwards. Snakes can't move backwards. They can double back on themselves, but what they tend to do is go forward and then they rub their noses. So if you put them in a box or something, they tend to rub their noses a lot. And bags tend to bundle them up. They tend to naturally just bundle up, and then they also won't hurt their noses or rub their noses, scrape their noses. Now, you don't need to be afraid of this one. This one is a very small snake, and it is one of only a very few snakes in the world. It's tiny. It's really small. Tiny but deadly. No, it's not. This is one of the only snakes in the world, only types of snakes, that does not have teeth. Most snakes have teeth. This is a toothless snake, really. So even if it were to try and bite you, it wouldn't even hurt. They don't. Now, what's unusual about this, it looks, so plain, right? If you can see it. It looks so plain. This is a common African egg-eating snake. This is truly an amazing animal. Now, I'm going to try and show you where the jaws are. I don't know if there's a camera that can zoom in, but his jaws go back double the distance of a regular snake. See how where it bends over my finger, those jaws, how far back they go? That snake literally eats eggs. His eyes are very forward on the head, too. In fact, if you would, hon, take him by 2 hands. It won't hurt you. And if he starts moving, you just go hand over hand, okay? He will not hurt you. He can't. There's no way he can hurt you. So, now, Max, you're going to get the nice big snake.
Great, awesome.
This is a really common snake. I would bet that maybe one of you, or well, probably several of you out here, might have a snake like this for a pet. So this is Xena. She is world traveled. She has been all over the place. She is a ball python. Does anybody have one of these as a pet? Just go, woo, if you do. Woo, there's one. Now, ball pythons come from Africa as well. In fact, these come from the same part of Central Africa. Now, when you think of Central Africa is immense. You can practically fit the whole lower 48 in Central Africa. That's how big a continent Africa is. And this snake is found the most commonly. It lives in all kinds of grassland areas and scrub brush, and it eats primarily small mammals and birds. They don't live way up in the trees, and they don't live on the ground. They kind of live in the middle zone. They hold a niche there. This is one of the strongest, it's a true python. It has pits along its mouth, so it can actually detect heat and hunt that way. So it doesn't need its eyes, and it really doesn't even need its sense of smell to hunt as long as it has its pit senses. They're really, really acute and good. This snake is very strong. This snake right here could wrap around your arm and cut off the circulation. That's how strong she is. Yeah, no, we're not going to do that, but you can put her around your neck if you want.
I can like wear it?
Yeah, you can put her right around your neck.
No way.
Oh yeah, she's super nice. Yeah. So, and take your hand like this and hold her just like that. Now, we're going to talk about that one in just a minute. This one right here. Now, everybody, if anybody's ever heard of an egg-eating snake, they think of like eating chicken eggs. No. Well, this snake, the only way I can keep this snake is I have to keep a small bird called a button quail, and they're very prolific egg. They lay a lot of eggs, and they lay these little tiny brown eggs. And if I didn't have those birds, then I couldn't keep the snake because they eat nothing else but freshly laid eggs. And won't eat anything else, won't eat bugs, won't eat anything else. So I give it an egg, and here's the amazing thing. So this snake comes up and sniffs it, and then all of a sudden it unhinges its mouth, and it turns the egg and pivots it on the fat end of the egg, and then it starts working like somebody grabbing a ladder. Their jaws are not, they're separate, so they're separated in the middle, and then the muscles move independently. So here's this big mouth, and it's going whoop, whoop, whoop down the egg until it swallows the entire egg. And so it has these amazing big, huge jaws. And in its vertebrae, one of its neck vertebrae, there is a protrusion that is, instead of going up toward the back, it actually goes down. And when the snake actually constricts a little bit, that little bone protrusion, it doesn't come through the skin, but it actually pops the egg. And you hear it. It makes a sound. It's an audible sound. And all of a sudden, you see the egg just going down. And what it does is it constricts the egg down, puts its head up, the egg goes down the body, and then it does this weird thing. Its body starts making this weird, wiggly, weird motion and weird stuff. And then if you've ever seen Stranger Things with that creature that opens up, that's what it looks like. And all of a sudden, this little pill comes out. It's the egg, and it's in one piece because there's a membrane inside the egg. Yeah. It's going right through to your throat. No, you're good. You're good. You're good. So, and then it spits out the shell. And that's how it eats the eggs. These eat a lot of eggs. And it's really fast. You would think that would take a long time. It takes about 30 seconds. And the reason for that is because it's got to get into a nest where a bird is, and it's freshly laid eggs. So the mom's going to stay around for a long time. Well, it's going to take the opportunity to go as fast as it can, because that egg, if it's a couple days old and it starts developing, it will not eat that. It likes fresh laid eggs. So it goes into the nest very quickly, eats, and then is gone before the mother even knows it. And typically the bird will lay another egg. Sometimes the snake will stick around because they will lay egg after egg after egg when they're missing, and this snake will just keep taking advantage of it. So it won't eat all the eggs, but it will eat the newest laid eggs. When it's scared, do you feel the scales, how rough they are? It will actually curl up, and it will, it sounds like somebody rolled sandpaper over wood. So I think the scary thing about snakes is obviously they don't have legs, and that they don't have a division in their face like bugs as well. Their eyes are on the side, their nose is not really descript, you can't see it. And so when we look at, we're hardwired, when we look at animals, especially like baby rabbits and monkeys and things, we look at them and go, oh, because we're hardwired to see those two eyes looking at us, ears, and a mouth that's identifiable. It's a pattern, and we see that as cute. But when we look at animals like this, we're like, no. And the movement and without the lack of legs, it is something really scary. And with snakes, honestly, it's something that is kind of taught through your parents. If you see your parent go, you're typically going to do that. And it's also biblical. We think of the serpent too. And that does play a part in it. So people that, think of the serpent in Genesis. So that does play a part. So, but not bad, is it? No. And snakes, gosh, guys, if we had just the type of snake we have around here, garter snakes, and we have fox snakes. A fox snake or a rat snake, they can eat up to 200 mice a year. So just say half of those are females, and they'll have a litter of anywhere from 12 to 16, 3 or 4 times a year litter. That's a lot of mice that this thing is, a snake like this is controlling. Now, owls and hawks and things even do better than that. They eat thousands. But snakes do a really good job at this, too. So, thank you, guys. Excellent job. Excellent. It wasn't bad, was it? Not bad at all, huh? I'll tell you what. I used to work with 22 different types of North American native rattlesnakes. I worked at the Fort Wayne Children's Zoo. And I had a couple of snakes. I had one in particular. This wasn't a rattlesnake. It was a copperhead. And there was for goodness sakes, eastern timber rattlesnake. And I could have bet the farm on it that I could have just picked them up and handled them and so forth. They can be very calm animals. But rattlesnakes, they don't bite a lot because all they have to do is rattle. And even copperheads will rattle their tail. They can back it up with the bite and venom. Whereas snakes that are non-venomous, they tend to bite a lot more. You'll get bitten by snakes, water snakes especially, because that's all they have to do to defend themselves. Whereas rattlesnakes and venomous, they can back it up. So all they have to do is give a warning, and most animals are like, whoa, so yeah, some of those, but now I never picked up one of those rattlesnakes, of course, but I mean, it could really be a really calm animal. They could be really calm. Now, I'm sure one of you guys you don't want to hold this one. I know, I can tell. So, this is one that comes from South America. And it is a chinchilla. There you go. Would you like to come up and then and hold them loosely? Less is best. You don't have to squeeze them. So take that right hand. We'll just put a hand right under his feet and let his feet touch. And then what he likes is right behind. There's that right there. So this is a chinchilla. Chinchillas are the only domesticated squirrel. And domestication means that it's an animal that's taken from the wild and generation of breeding, and breeding out habits that you don't like, or qualities of an animal you don't like, you breed it till it's domesticated. It's completely dependent on people. And this is what we have here. This is a domesticated squirrel. It's a ground squirrel. It's not a tree-living squirrel. So, like we have chipmunks and groundhogs here in North America. Those are ground squirrels. Groundhogs are ground squirrels. This guy, can you kind of take him and pivot him up a little bit and see if we can see his feet? He has teeny tiny little feet. There we go. Yep, and put him right back. You're all right. There you go. He has teeny tiny little feet, and they're gummy. Can you feel them? Do you feel them? They're gummy. So it's like a rock climber. They're kind of like the original rock climber. These things live up 12 to 15,000 feet in elevation in the Andes Mountains of South America. And they are really acrobatic. These little guys can jump about 3 feet straight in the air. Yeah, hold him looser. He doesn't like to be squeezed. So here, I'll show you.
All right.
So what? No, don't go away. Okay. Just like that. You can actually, you're not going to do that, but you can hold him out here and woo. He's very sure-footed. The tail is used for balance. It's also used for covering their face like a scarf. So just nice and loose right up against you. There you go. Yeah, like that. Now, you might look at those ears and think, oh, he's got amazing hearing. And really, he doesn't. They hear almost well, they don't hear almost. They hear exactly in the decibel and range that we do. In fact, this animal is very important to science because audiologists study these. These are very important in the study of hearing, and they've been helped with the use of cochlear implants. Some of you might have them. It's very common these days that people that have either almost no hearing or loss of hearing, complete loss of hearing in their ears, if the cochlea has been damaged but have a cochlear implant, you can hear again. It's really amazing. It's technology that's been around for about 15 years, maybe a little longer. But these guys are instrumental in that and different types of hearing aids because their ears, if you were to look inside his little head, his ears inside are almost the same size as the ears in our body, and he's got a little tiny head. He has that kind of hearing. But the ears, external ears, keeps him cool. So this guy has really thick coat, and the more air that's trapped is the more insulation he has. And so they can actually overheat, and those ears, their blood vessels will dilate, and the air circulating will keep them cool. So they have a really neat family unit too. They're a matriarchal society. So when the girls are the ones that are in control. Males and females breed for life, and the head female will be the dominant in the family group or the colony, and she is the one that's under control. She's the one that controls everything. So and then next is her mate, and like I said, they stay together for life. When they have males, the males stay in the colony. And then once they get to a certain age, they may leave finding a female. Because the females are the ones that are kicked out of the family, whereas the males will leave when they find another mate, when they find another female. So the mother, if she has young daughters, once they get to the age where they can have babies, she will violently kick them out. She will bite, and they have a really unique way of telling whether they're mad or not. They stand up and they aim and they pee on each other. Isn't that great? Isn't that cool? Yeah, such a cute little animal, and you wouldn't think that's what they do, but they do. That's how they they do that. Now, these animals are extinct in the wild. Chinchillas are extinct in the wild. They've been extinct for over 80 years, right in the middle of one of our worst economies in our history, the Great Depression. 1 out of 5 people were out of work, and fur became the most luxury besides cars. People that did have and were able to obtain their wealth would show off and throw it in other people's faces by wearing the most expensive furs and keeping the most expensive cars. Like we're not far from Auburn Court, the Auburn, and then the Court and the Duesenbergs. Those are some of the most expensive cars, and those were popular in the 30s. Same thing was a chinchilla coat. They were in the thousands of dollars even in the 30s. So that was a real lot of money. So these days in the United States, they don't raise them for fur. In other countries they do, Russia particularly, but they are completely domesticated. There are no wild ones. They have been bred, their wild qualities and characteristics have been bred out, so there are no wild chinchillas anymore, unfortunately. But they are kept by the millions as pets around the world. So isn't he cute? And then those really long whiskers. Their eyesight isn't very good, so they use those really long whiskers to feel their way around. They're really great for dusting old cobwebs along baseboards and stuff. You just let them run around and go. So they'll take care of it. They look like little cotton swabs on the ends once they've run around your house. If you don't keep it up well, they'll do that. So I'm not saying that I do that, but it works. So anyway, just a neat little animal. Pretty cool, right? Yeah. Let's see. What do we have left? Here? We have... Let me show you. Okay, so amphibians. Amphibians happen to be some of my favorite animals. And just in case here, I'm going to hold this one over the container because frogs and toads, when they're scared, they urinate, they pee. And they can pee in a stream about 6 feet long. Now, guys, you're looking at the United States' largest toad. It's called the Colorado River toad. And the one I have in my hand right now, he's all inflated right now. His name is Ralph. And Ralph has got his air sacs all puffed up right now, making himself look big. And Ralph is not even half grown yet. They get very, very large. Ralph is a toad and not a frog. And how do we know this? Well, because I know this species, but if you were to open his mouth, right? And you were to run your fingers through his mouth, if you were to feel some sharp protrusions, they would be called teeth, and those would be frogs. This is a toad. He doesn't have that. And that's how we identify the two. Why that is, quite frankly, I don't even know, but that's how they determine frogs and toads. So it's not whether their skin is smooth or rough and whether they live in water or not, even though this one is a toad and it loves the water. And it lives in an area of it is found all the way along the whole length of the Colorado River, all the way into, I believe, Mexico. And it lives right in that little zone of water because where most of the habitat is, it's desert, it's hot, and that is not conducive to amphibians who have mucous skin, and they like moisture. So he lives in an area that way. This is a predator. They live in colonies, and they will feed on themselves if they're small enough to fit in their mouths. But they will also eat fish and bugs, small mammals. They've even been known to eat small birds that come down to the water, and they hold completely still, and then they grab them. So they are a predatory animal. You want to touch him. He's dry to the touch. He's not sticky. If you were to get him a little wet, they're really... If you were to get to moisten the skin, it's really, really slippery because the mucous membranes on his skin that's what start to get moist. Now, the thing about this animal is, what I just let you guys touch and what I'm holding right here is the most poisonous animal I possess. This animal is really, really poisonous. No joke. Now, you can hold this guy all day, and he's pretty good. So sometimes I'm just going to hold him like this. He's not going bathroom now, so he's pretty cool. Ralph actually has these glands. It's a big word called parotoid glands, and these parotoid glands have a lot of poison in them. It's like Elmer's glue. It's very consistent of Elmer's glue. It's sticky. It's glue-like. And if you were an animal that tried to bite into him, he would immediately release those poisons out of this gland, and he does have it throughout these little tiny, I'll show you. See those little glands right here? These little, they call them warts, but those are little glands, or pores, and the poison will come out of the skin there as well. And if you were to consume that, it could quite possibly be fatal to you. It's that toxic. Amphibians especially have a soup of all different kinds of poisons in their body because they don't have skin like we do. Our skin is our number one defense. Amphibians, it's theirs as well, but they have to have all kinds of poisons in their skin. In fact, they're doing a lot of studies with amphibians now, cures for cancer, antifungals, antibacterials. Amphibians are really, really important. And things like salamanders, they're the largest vertebrate that can regrow their limbs, like their tail and their feet and legs. They're studying those for things like people that are missing limbs to actually try and grow them back, believe it or not. So they're really important to science. But and even this toxin that they have here has been found to be possibly good for antibacterials and things for medical reasons. So it's pretty cool animal, amphibians in general. So we're going to put him back, and then I have one last animal to show. And all of you guys up here can hold him if you want. We're running out of time here. Let's see. I have an American alligator. So this is Irwin. Irwin is a North American alligator. There's only two real types of alligators in the world. The Chinese alligator, which is probably one, if not the rarest, one of the rarest reptiles in the world. So rare that the Chinese government a few years ago decided to take every single one of the wild ones they could find in the wild and bring them into captivity, and there's not very many of them. They're a much smaller alligator than the North American kind. Now, Irwin here is very small. He's actually 17 years old. The previous owner had this guy, didn't take care of him very well, and didn't feed him, and it kept him very small. He's an adult alligator in a small body. They have incredibly, incredibly strong jaws. This guy here could break fingers if he wanted to. He's very easy to handle. He's not tame, nor is he trained. This is a wild animal that's been socialized to people. It's actually more dangerous than a wild animal just sitting out in the swamp because he's not afraid of me. So I've actually, by doing this, I'm actually grooming him and telling him, hey, I'm not a danger to you. So that's why he has no reason to try and bite me or want to bite me. Socialized animals like monkeys and elephants and things like that can be more dangerous than the actual wild animal in the wild because they're not afraid. They're used to people all the time, and they're going to just kind of throw their weight around. So not something you want to, really not a good pet at all. Now, he's not going to hurt you. He's not going to bite you. He's easy to hold. You can put your thumb right there and your thumb right there. Alligators are top predators. They have been on this earth for a long time. And this guy right here is, out of the two that I have a much bigger one. He's actually a more aggressive feeder than the bigger one I have. I don't like to feed live food because live food can bite back in a cage situation. But when I have no choice and I have to find a live mouse or something live, really just the mice, it's unbelievable how aggressive they are. They're violent. They are fast. You having fun? They're brutal. They're violent. You hear the bones crush. They are powerful, and they thrash an animal until it's dead. I mean, that's what they do. Yeah, isn't that cool? Here, go ahead. Yeah, there you go. Got him. He likes to just be held nice and just hold him nice and confidently, just like that. Yep. The bite force of their mouths is similar to a great white shark. Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah. Yep. And the bigger they are, the bigger they can get. A big alligator with a head this big can crush the femur of a cow. So we're talking a bone that big around and really, really, really hard. So they're quite an amazing animal. They can run as fast as a racehorse for a short distance. That's about 43 to 44 miles an hour in about I wouldn't even say 50 feet or so. It's a quick, lightning, explosive charge. And they can swim faster than most fish in a lightning quick charge. You want to try it? He's easy. Oh, come on. Look at that. Look at that.
Oh.
See? He's cold. He's cold to the touch. Nothing to it. Nothing to it. So no big deal. No big about it. No big. They have really good hearing, and that's what usually scares an alligator. Now, we don't have them around here, so we don't have to worry about it. But their ears are right behind their head, and they have a little chamber inside of powerful muscles that they can actually open their ears and take in air, and that keeps their head buoyant as well as their body buoyant, and they hold themselves on the top of the water just like that. The eyes are right at the top of the water, right at the surface, as well as the nose, so he can keep his whole body submerged except for his eyes and his nose, and then just an explosive charge. So these things are amazing when you feed him. He is really aggressive when I feed him dead, mostly chicken with the bones. They need the bones. And when I feed him, he's just powerful and aggressive, and the bones crack and crunch. But when you feed him live, it's more of catch and just, it's got to be killed because that animal can come back and bite the eyes and stuff. That's why his eyes actually go right into the skull. He never sees when he eats. So it's a pretty amazing animal. And they're not as aggressive as people think. They don't hurt people. Very, very, very rare in the South. These things were endangered until a few years ago. They were taken off the federal endangered protected species list. And in every state now that they're found, you can get hunting licenses for them. So, but they don't make good pets. The only reason I have them, and I would never, ever buy one as a pet, and you can, and in Indiana, they are honestly not illegal. They are in like Fort Wayne where I'm close to. I have to have a special permit for them. And then if they get too big, then I have to have a permit through the state.
All right, Mark, I gotta jump in there.
All done here?
Yeah, can we give him a round of applause and thank him for this morning? That was really great.
Whoa, almost tripped.
We're grateful for you being here. We would invite you to come back the rest of the week at chapel to continue this conversation about stepping outside your comfort zone. You're dismissed. Please don't scan out.